Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 13 of The Voice in the Hollow. My name is Miguel Ortega, and this is my co-host.
Tran.
She hates when we do that,
I do.
but we're gonna keep doing it. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We got a lot done this week, and we want to share it with you guys. So if you've never tuned in before, what is this? We're showing the week by week uh, breakdown of how we're making it being a short film that we're doing all in Unreal. We're not masters in Unreal by any means, so we're figuring out a lot of this as we go. Um, and yeah, just showing you the whole process. Yeah, that's it. So this week, let me make this a little bit bigger. We wanted to try to get some of the lighting stuff done. So you guys saw this last week.
Ni mawindo yangu, ulichelewa tena. Hebu nionyeshe.
So you'll see in a second how much it's changed since. So this is all old. The lighting and everything was very crappy. So, all right. So this week we went back in. Well, not back in because we had never gotten to that point really. And we started lighting all of this stuff with our proper shaders and everything. And this is what we have so far. It's just a section.
Ni mawindo yangu, ulichelewa tena.
She doesn't have clothes here yet.
Hebu nionyeshe. Jamani.
So that's what we got so far. So you can see quite a big difference in just a week, which just shows you that's usually what happens with visual effects. There's a very slow ramp up, and then things start coming out much faster because everything is in place. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. Not everything is done. So as you can see, like for example, this one, she doesn't have clothes yet.
Yeah, so you guys will end up seeing shots of like, oh, the clothes are not there.
Yeah, so they're not going to be naked, of course, but all the clothes are simulated separately. This one was literally put in like 10 minutes ago. So all the clothing is being simulated in Marvelous Designer and then brought in as an Alembic cache. You can see everything is properly simmed, whereas when you look at the original one, it was just kind of weighted to the surface, so nothing is moving. You know, even something like this angle completely changed, but you can see there's no dangly bits, nothing. This one.
Yeah, we basically replaced that shot that you just cut out of. Yeah, so these are new shots.
Let me make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, so a few things that you guys might notice is I really want this to feel like a 1970s, like it was shot in the 70s. So we're going for, but I'm the one adding the actual effects. We're going for heavy grain. I'm actually softening the image, so it's not as sharp as it probably could be, and that's intentional. You can see we have like an old 60 millimeter frame here. There's scratches and everything, and that's something that I want because you usually see that stuff. When I first thought about adding this, I'm like, oh, it just looks so kind of gimmicky, but you don't see it in like animation, and I wanted something that really separates us. So I wanted to put that in there. I even want the score to be recorded in a way that sounds like an older recording. So you can see you have like all the white speckles and stuff. Yeah, and the shot that Tran is talking about, we just completely redid it because it wasn't working for us. And there's still, we want to add like these berries that are in the next shot all throughout this, just to bring in some red. I really like this palette here. Probably still work on the back area over here. But you can see even at this distance, when you look at all the little dangly bits, everything is like moving
properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They all have proper simulation.
Yeah. So these berries, we really felt like we needed more red, and the only red should be the girls. And we were like, let's add something in the environment to connect them. So we're gonna put the red berries. Originally, they were gonna be apples.
Other two, but they were really
big.
bulky and big.
Yeah. This one probably has to be adjusted to be a little bit cooler because it's still kind of warm. Same exact lighting, but for whatever reason, since you're not seeing the fog, it doesn't have that blue. So we have to cheat that a little bit, so we'll fix that. And this is the shot that I'm going to just work on today during the stream. So I like-ish the beginning of it. So the idea is she's pushing the spear to hide it from her sister, because her sister would make fun of her. You can see the spear is broken in two. She's hiding it in the bush, and then she turns to talk to her sister. The shot completely falls apart once she turns around, so I got to figure this out. There's all this hideous depth of field issues here, and I'm not going to get so concerned about that yet. We can figure that out. Even if we have to brute force it and render that separately and comp it, that's fine. But the lighting back there just kind of sucks. The other thing is you can see we have this shadow issue here. That's definitely it, right?
Yeah, that's the ray tracing
Yeah.
shadows.
So that's something we had talked about last week. Ray tracing shadows double-sided. You have to turn that off. I didn't turn that off, so that's making that look ugly as well. That's the black spots on the floor. And I'm just looking at some of the comments. Yeah, it looks much better. The facial animation are so good already. Thank you. That's all me acting on the facial stuff. So
Miguel is doing all the performance.
yeah, so all of those.
So he's doing all the facial expressions.
Yeah, so when you look at like that, that's literally me. Like when I mean me, it's like literally with the motion capture helmet, recording my stuff and running it through mocap X. So you can see there's certain moments that feel kind of jerky, and the reason why we originally went with this style, more than anything, more than from a modeling point of view, is because since we're not animators, we knew that the animation was probably where we were going to be the weakest at. So we thought, let's try to do it in a style where if there's any imperfections, there's any sort of choppiness, it'll feel more primitive, like stop motion.
Well, yeah, and also, what Miguel and I do, aside from not animating, we also don't rig, right? So we have to rely on someone else, and we're the only ones really on this full time because that's how these type of projects work. They're low funding, and so you don't want to outsource like a ton of hours into something that's not possible with our budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we always want to just make sure, at least when we come into this, that this rough style is going to work with our limitations and what we can't do.
Yeah. So this shot here, this one was like, this was the first one we did because we were really struggling with the wider shots. Like we're like, what is the palette? And I think when we got this one, we were like, okay, this is gonna work. And I should have added the berries, like I said, but then I jumped onto this shot, which this shot was killing us. So I'll show you what it was originally like. I actually might even have it here. Let me just pull it up because this shot was well, it's this shot here.
Yeah, but we tried to light this like 10 different ways.
We tried to light this a bunch of different ways, and it looked worse and worse. Let me show you like a newer version of that before we decided to just change the camera angle.
For a question about the size of the team, it's just Miguel and I, and we have one rigger who's rigging everything. Animators,
Jamani.
we're getting a few here and there.
Yeah, but everything you're seeing here is mostly us, and then we had two guys help us clean up some of the motion capture. Two Gnomon students that we'll probably bring on the stream at some point.
Yeah, they're all the people who are helping us are super amazing. They're super good. It's just we can't pay them to work more hours for us because we don't have that kind of funding.
Yeah. So this was the original shot, and there was just something about it that
Jamani.
never did it for me. So then we were like, let's keep the same thing, but let's just keep it tighter, and that way we're traveling with her. I actually feel it feels more cinematic this way.
Jamani.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was the original one.
Plus that shot is also the new one. Yeah, that one I agonized over. So last week I looked. If you're tuning in for the first time, you didn't know. If you're a regular and last week you saw me doing this, you could see I was really bummed out. I was suffering over these angles, like big time.
Yeah.
And also, if you look at the new shot, the replacement for this one, that's the kind of shot that would have been very difficult to light without Unreal, because there's a lot of dynamic lighting happening,
Jamani.
and that's all fake, right? So it's
Even,
light.
yeah, like the
It's
light.
it's light here and there just to create that effect.
Yeah.
But
So
that would have been very difficult in a V-Ray situation or using Arnold or any one of those renderers.
and what she means by fake is like this rim light here is not actually being cast by the light in the back. There's another light just for that. This blue light here on the side, that's not coming from this. That's another light just to give us that. These nice specular highlights on the eyes, that's
Or-
actually in the textures.
Yeah, they're fake.
They're fake. Then she comes out here. You can see that it feels like there's all the shadows from the leaves casting down on her. That's all fake.
That's a gobo.
That's
Yeah.
a gobo material, a light function on the light. And then we would have a second one, like two lights, one on top of another. One that would have it and one that wouldn't, just to illuminate her silhouette a little bit better. As soon as she walks in here, you can see another light kicks in, casting this rim light here. That's another light. And then as she comes all the way up to the front, this eye was in complete shadows. So there's another light here just illuminating this part of the face. So let's go through one of the shots here. So you could see how simple this is in terms of the amount of layers that we have in Sequencer. We have this thing broken down into separate pieces. So we have our clothing. One thing you might notice is this stuff looks way more saturated in here than it does inside of Premiere. And that's because of the color grading that we're going with. So you can see when you look at that here, it almost doesn't even look saturated. It looks just like there's a little bit of red. And then when you look at that here, it's like crazy vibrant red. So that's just because we're overcompensating for it. So we have our clothing, our character Allah, and then the spear is rendered separately as well. So this one, let me see where this is at. There is a master light here. So there's one like sunlight. But even though we have that, I wasn't getting this really nice rim light. So I would still create a spotlight and put it really bright on her just to get that really nice look here. And that's just spawned into that one shot. That's it. So, but anyway, let's go to the shot that I want to work on right now. Does anybody have any questions? Let me see in the meantime. So no. Okay. So let's go to, I mean, I'm literally going to be building this shot live, so I don't even know if it's going to turn out good. So hopefully it does. So it's this one here. Unreal has been crashing a lot, so if it crashes, just know that that's normal.
Yeah, there's a lot of crashing with this new version. So we're both experiencing that.
Here, while that's loading up, you can see the highlights on the eyes, how nice they look, and you should actually show that because I think it's really cool how you did the left eye, right eye.
It's super simple cheat.
Yeah, but it's really cool.
Should I do it? Are you going to wait for that?
Yeah.
It's basically just an emissive. So then that means it's always illuminated, right? So the eyes are not real eyes, meaning like they don't have like a refractive material, you know, where it makes it very shiny and wet. So it's very easy to lose the highlight. And if you don't have highlight in the eyes will tend to go dead. So I just painted a black and white mask to and inserted that into the missive so that it's always illuminated. So it's basically a light.
Okay, so here's the shot. So first thing I'll do is I'll turn on my letterbox. So I'm doing 2:1. So that's kind of my aspect ratio.
You lose all the nice berries at the top.
That's what it is. I could bring them down, but should I bring them down?
I think a little bit, some of them, like breaking it up.
So let's bring it down.
So while Miguel, he's doing that this week was just trying us working together to try to make the shots look nicer. So looking at it and saying, hey, we need, you know, different pieces. So I would go into Speed Tree and make more berries or make just little branches that are just meant for being close-ups for framing like that, like what you're seeing there.
Which is how we probably would have done this. We were talking about like how we ended up doing this a lot, like how we would have done our live action stuff.
Oh yeah, we would totally do this live action.
Like
Exactly the same thing. We were
yeah,
just
it would look cool in the camera, and then there would be like a guy just right off to the side.
holding a branch.
Yeah.
So
So let me just bring this over here. So you can see that branch is not connected to anything, but we'll just put them in the shot. Let me just do a split view here. Now turn off. All right, so sorry about that. So this way I could see what I'm doing. So I just gotta, I'll bring it down, but I just gotta be careful that she doesn't interpenetrate it.
what color of clothing does the guy holding the branch wear? Question.
It wouldn't matter. If that's a real question, then it wouldn't matter if it's
Yeah.
oh yeah, if you mean because they wouldn't be visible in the frame, if that's what you meant, you would just. We're just saying like how low budget we would work. Like we wouldn't have a whole tree. Is what I meant. Not that I wouldn't be a visual effects trick. So let's just grab that. That.
Well, I think it's saying imagine affects the lighting because maybe like bounce, but normally we don't actually really think about that unless it does. But we haven't had that. Most crew working on stage are just wearing blue jeans anyway. No one's wearing any like crazy, funky colors that might like bounce into their scene.
Yeah. So that gives us a little bit of the berries. Well, let's bring that back in. This is one of the most annoying things in Unreal is how this constantly gets lost, the size that we set this to. Okay, so I think the foreground is okay, but this background here, I just freaking hate when the camera racks over to the other side. So let's just take a look and see what we have here. So there's too much light. So I like that this kind of feels like a cave a little bit. So I want to, I have a point light here, which was crashing when I was turning it off, or deleting it rather. So I'm not going to delete it right now, but you can see that's doing that. I think I'm just going to turn that off for now. So cast shadows, whatever. Okay. And then what I want is I think that the stuff outside just looks very ugly, like everything out here. I hate how that looks. So let's just grab, and I'll move this over here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just looking for my sun source, so that's over here. So the lighting, and then I have my sun, and I'll just throw that in here. My sequencer, and I'm going to come over here to track, transform, and light component intensity I already have there, so that's fine. And remember, we're doing this. This is usually we like prepare our tutorials a little bit more. Like I'm completely just making something now, so this might totally look like crap. So no promises. If it looks good though, this is what will be in the film. So that's kind of cool. So all right, so let's see. So I have the light here. Let me just go to my transform. And what I want to do is make the light be backlighting. So have the light coming in. I think I had it. So that's totally in the front. That seems like it's in the back right there, right? Let's angle it a little bit. And I'll add a key to that. And under intensity, let's try to bring this up. It's probably too much. So I want to see what other lights I have in here and just turn everything off for now. So I want to focus on that light first. So just outside.
Do you also have the ray tracing for both sides? Because it's going to have black splotches everywhere. Yeah, be kind of confusing.
Yeah, I should turn that on. So r.raytracing.shadows, two-sided geometry, base 0.
Yes, today is Miguel's birthday.
Who wrote that?
Alex.
Uh-oh, I got outed.
Well, you outed me last week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. And Nikki Nix wishes you happy birthday.
Thank you.
There's a question. Now that Unreal 5 is fully released, did you notice any major changes? Yes.
The biggest changes, what are the biggest changes?
Well,
It crashes a lot.
it crashes a ton,
Yeah.
and something's broke. You can't use DirectX 11 at all. So anyone who was using that, right? I heard Mac. There's some Mac users. Mac doesn't support DirectX 12, and you need it for nanite support. So if you're on DirectX 11 and you load your scene, everything's going to look super low poly. It's going to revert to a fallback mesh. You have to move up to DirectX 12. And if you use DirectX 12, with any surface in nanite, you get those black splotches all over it. So that was one thing. There's some issues with shadows through fog materials. I'm not sure if it's with the lighting or the overall fog. They're not really casting shadows, right? Like if you see what Miguel, the light he's working with, there's no light streaks. That's another thing that I noticed. Two-sided materials or single-sided surfaces with translucency don't necessarily shine light through the backside of the normal anymore. So there's all these little things are breaking and lots of crashing.
Yeah. So let me
Any-
put that guy in there. So
birthday wishes. Oh, someone's.
hold on a second. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can. I just didn't want to disturb you.
No, you're not disturbed.
Any tips of what to know before getting into Unreal Engine and use Unity before and have any chance to get into Unreal now?
You probably know more than what we knew.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I would. If you were using Unity, you probably know more.
I'm going to bring this down.
Any tips into getting into Unreal? Much easier than 4. I would say if you're interested in like doing what we're doing and not doing like a game where you have to worry about like light maps and stuff like that, just make sure when you set up, just have ray tracing on. The one thing that's really tricky with Unreal is that there's all these options for like everything, right? So this will turn ray tracing on. This one magic button that we don't know exists all of a sudden makes this happen or that happen. So there's all these little things I think that get tricky. I don't know. I would say just make sure you have ray tracing on. That way you're going to have all your settings that you would expect. Other than that, if you don't, you can end up hunting down like what is this one setting that I need to have on, and that will kind of take care of not everything, but I think certain things in the beginning.
Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm trying to make the light feel like it's coming from the outside of that opening. Let me see where the hell I am. Sometimes I get lost in here.
I think the big thing, if you're starting out and you have DirectX 12, is you will see splotches all over your nanite. And just make sure you turn off ray tracing on both sides of the geometry in the console.
Yeah. One of the things that drives me crazy, since we're using a lot of alembics, the pivot is set to 0. So when you select something and you try to frame it, it never shows you like the close-up of the actual model. You're always looking at something very far away. because the pivot is like over here somewhere and the character is over here. So you just want to press the character and press aim and frame it, but it's not going to do what you want it to do, which is terrible. Give me 1 second. Let me see what I have here. So, all right, let me take a look. So let's compare that to the shots before. So she's walking up to this right here. So I just want to make sure we have like a continuity.
Jamani.
So that works. It just when it turns back, like, it looks so horrible. So, all right, so let's see. Does that look better than that?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I almost want to bring it into, I actually wish there was more fog in here.
Well, you have some of your other lights off, right?
No, I turned them all back on.
Oh, every light is on.
Yeah. But I might create like another fog light just for the inside here. So something that I wish I could do is like look at this in like luminance view. And I want the values to fade out from the darkest should always be the closest to the camera, and then they should start getting lighter. And I don't like that this is darker than this. So I need to figure out a way of fixing that. So I might just duplicate this light here. So it's way too bright, I know that. So let's bring it to 50. So we have some God rays coming in, that's okay.
So questions are the assets, photo scan, photogrammetry. The environment, most of it is for mega scans. So they're all nanite. And then there's the characters, of course, custom made. Trees were custom made. Anything that, I mean, you can tell that's not a real tree. Anything that doesn't look real, photo real or photo scan is not. I mean, you can just kind of see that. Some things are modified, right? So we might take a Megascan asset and modify it, and then bring it back in.
So
But
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but trees and the custom stuff is just made.
Yeah. So I'm just going to make sure that so over here, I need to do something about this area here. So let's address that. So again, like I'll show you like one of the problems. So instinctually, I just want to select her and press F and frame it, but the pivot is somewhere completely out different. You can see the pivot is down here. In this case, it wasn't so bad because she's getting closer to 0. So I usually just select something else that I know has the pivot centered, and then I zoom into that or frame that rather. So, okay, so we have that right there. So I'm going to create another light.
There's a question here. Wow, looks great. Thank you. Trees and speed tree, yes. Trees and that you see Miguel messing with, like the branches and the berries, are all made in speed tree.
Yeah. We wanted the trees to feel more stylized. So we'll just grab that spotlight. There we go. So your lights should always be in the back. Everything looks better when you light it from behind. I'm much more handsome when I'm lit from behind. So that's how. So, all right, so let's adjust this. We'll bring this down. Okay, so we get a nice rim light there. So let's save this. Okay. So for anybody that's tuning in, we're trying to make this work with this. So let me just play the sequence here. Let's take a look at it again just to make sure that it's working.
Ni mawindo yangu, ulichelewa tena.
Hebu nionyeshe. Ah. Jamani.
All right, so there we go. So let's put that. That looks better. I still wish it was more blown out back there, but I think it might get blown out in the color correction. So let me save all.
I agree. It would look better blown out.
So let's try it. That's why I want that nuke plugin to start working, because this would be very simple. So I'll go to the intensity. It just starts lighting way too much on the inside, like there's too much bounce. Let me see what else could be happening here. It almost makes me want to put like a black card over here to like kill off some light. I want to see if that would do anything. Again, this is like not a tutorial necessarily. Like I'm figuring this out literally live this time. So I think that's more useful. Right now the card is white, which is not good because it's going to be bouncing light. But for now, I'll just create a material in here.
While you're doing that, here's a question. What assets do we need to personally make? We have to make the characters and just anything custom to the story. And then the trees, basically. And then David wishes you happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right, so hopefully that'll darken that up a little bit. I'll duplicate this guy. Is this casting shadows correctly? Or should it be the other way?
It might have to be the other way, or you have to turn on Well, you made that
Illustrator.
plane, but if you enabled two-side geometry, you would cast both ways, but it might be the wrong way.
I enabled it in the shader.
Oh, but sometimes, like in this new version, this is the thing that got me really confused. Was in this update, for some things I had to enable in the static mesh editor.
So here,
Yeah, try double. Yeah.
this right here.
No. Enable.
This right here.
Yeah.
That's collisions.
I don't know how it works with this guy. Let me double.
Yeah, you want to check that real quick?
I think you should just flip it around.
All right, let's try. Seems like it's not doing. The light is coming from the side here. Anyway, so let's move this out of the way here. So I'm just boxing her in. Okay, so that is. Just putting that there. Let's take a look. It's definitely working. So, okay, so if I'm gonna do that, then I need to make sure that this spotlight that I just created is more blue.
Oh, that's looking nicer. Question. How did you make the original landscape Houdini? And then Tom C wishes you happy birthday. The background, there's far in the back, there's a terrain that Miguel made, and he made it in Gaia. But we don't use Houdini, and then everything else is just smashed together Megascan, basically.
We want to know Houdini, we just don't know it.
Yeah. Well, yes. So it's like between learning Unreal or choosing Houdini, Unreal was our first choice, but we really would like to learn Houdini.
So let's put this light over her. A little bounce light.
Oh, you guys should check this out. I'm actually interested in this. The trailer for the new Gnomon Workshop title came out. Aaron Sims making of the Eye of. I actually can't say that word. Almost 5 hours. I'm actually really curious about that one. I want to see it.
So let's frame this. Oh, the Unreal thing?
Yeah, the one from
Yeah,
Aaron
yeah.
Sims.
That's very cool. That's how I originally started learning about CG, was watching Gnomon videos. I was going to say Gnomon DVDs, but they were VHS tapes back then.
Yeah, so Miguel went to Gnomon.
Yeah. So you can see it's casting some weird. I think I'm just going to put the light function on it here. So let me bring this up, something like that. And then I'll just move this light down here. We have a light function.
It's under assets.
A light function, there it is. And I'll just throw this on there. And I might have to It doesn't work. Might be because of the temperature. So let's bring that down. Let's bring it up. I think I liked it more without it.
Well, I think the light function is too spotty.
Yeah.
You could do what you did in the previous shot, where you just kind of doubled it with one with the function and one without.
Yeah, I should probably do that. So let's do that. So I'll keep that. That'll give me the light function. And then I'll duplicate the light right above it. Get rid of the light function. I'm going to set that to be blue. Bring it down. Let's just see what that's looking like. So it's too dark. So I need more light. I mean, I know that that's kind of silly that say more light. So what I might do here is I'm going to let's see. I might play with the camera angle for a second. So if I could use the background to frame her, I don't need to add another light. The important thing is that I have the clarity in the image. So if I do that, so she looks a little bit clownish. So we have to figure that out. So just create another camera real quick. I'm going to reframe this. Get my distance. I'll probably do like a 50 millimeter. That way I have a nice depth of field. Let's push back just a little bit. I'll add a keyframe just to see. So she turns around to talk to her sister. So at that point, I need to move the camera. So this doesn't have the shot modeling yet. There's a bunch of problems with the rig here that we have to resolve. So we'll turn this over here, add a keyframe. Over here, let's push in. So again, I'm going to put more light here for sure, but I'm trying to make the silhouettes read clearly at this point. So let's do that. Push in. Light function looks good. She looks back. Camera turns. Now we could see the sister in the back. And let's play with our depth of field distances. So she would turn and talk to her sister. So we have our rack focus. Probably want this to rack relatively quickly. So I'm going to shift the keys over.
I like the new angle on her face much more.
Yeah, me too. The only thing is I want to see her face a little bit more. Let me save this. Again, it's been crashing a lot. I just kind of want to rotate her a little bit more. I want to see her face while she's talking, but it does look prettier, right?
It does. these characters are trickier to light, partially because big part the way they were designed. So they don't have eyebrows, like literally. The thing that substitutes the eyebrows is the form that you're seeing. So if you light them from underneath, they could look kind of weird.
Yeah. All right, so let's grab this one here. Remember the trick, light from the back. There we go. Let me put that into my sequencer and convert to spawnable. All these lights here, probably me being sloppy, those are probably from another sequence that I haven't cleaned up. And I'm afraid to delete them because it'll wreck everything else.
Or it could just crash.
Or it could crash. You can see the light function looks really nice. I kind of want, let me see. I like the rim light on her right around here. Let's make it a little bit more blue. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate that. Might not work. Again, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Let's throw that into that, convert to spawnable.
I do like the lighting on her. Like even though she's dark,
It looks cool.
it looks cool. You need those highlights in the eyes. So that's the trick.
Yeah. So I think it looks cool. The only thing I want is more berries. So let's get some of the berries in here. So this was created just for this, just for like little accents. So we'll just grab that. Let's go to world space. Did I accidentally select something else?
Yeah, you got the wrong leaf. I have a hard time navigating still.
Yeah.
When I use Unreal, and I've been doing 3D for a long time, and usually, I mean, I have had problems with everything, but usually it's not navigating.
Oh. So when it comes to stuff like this, like the set dressing, the way we usually do everything is at this point, like Tran and I will sit next to each other and we'll just go over it.
Yeah, I'll usually take a seat next to Miguel, annoy the shit out of him, say, move this here, move that there.
It's so annoying, but yeah,
But you still do it.
yeah, gotta do it. So So let's just suggest a couple here and there.
You could probably use some of the berry twigs.
Yeah, I want to keep it really simple right now.
All right.
We could fine tune that later. I like that she almost looks like she's going around it. It's kind of cool. So this is just the part that kills me is the reverse. So I want to, let's take a look.
Now, part of it is you see Ala in the scene, right? So you don't want to blow it out so much that you can't see her. She turns around and is acknowledging this Ala at the bottom of the screen on the left.
Yeah, that's the problem. The next shot, if we look at this here. So again, this is the old crappy edit. You can see the lighting.
Pusha kwa nguvu sana. Siuoni?
Kweli.
So this is all old crappy lighting. There's no animation on the face, so it's got to look like, you know, like this. But this is working better. And of course, she's nude right now because the clothing gets simulated separately. Like, I like that right there.
Yeah.
So let me look at some of the focus issues here. So what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting the manual focus distance. Okay, this is a bug I noticed in what version is 5, that normally whatever focus settings I have here, when I render them, they look exactly the same. In this version, it doesn't seem like it, at least not when I'm using the render queue for this. They're looking much softer. So what I've actually had to do is lower the f-stop dramatically to something like this, for example, and then get my focus to work here. So this is going to be ridiculously sensitive to shifts in focus because the f-stop is like unreasonable. It's a 0.4. Like I don't think there's a lens that even has that, right? However, once I bring it right back to what I originally wanted, because the focus goes so out of focus here at 0.4, it'll actually render it sharper because I don't think it's transferring it accurately, or there's something is getting lost in translation from the settings that I have here and what I see here and what is actually rendering. So again, I'm just setting these values to be like overdoing the depth of field or the shallow depth of field so that it looks correct when I render it. So we got that. Let's go to the next shot, the next frame. So that's when it starts racking. So I still probably want it here.
Yeah. So while Miguel was doing this, he would run out shots and they were completely out of focus. They were just soft and they didn't look anything like what you would be seeing in his viewport at all. It was just completely blurry.
No,
So what he's doing is this is how he's fixing it.
that's right. So like I'm not crazy about these two branches just coming out like that. It just looks very unnatural. But I could fix that. I could, you know, art direct that a little bit better later. I want to make sure she never hits the berries. Let's set this to 2.8. Okay, so that's looking much better. Let me save because this crashes all the time. I'll go to my sun. I'll go to the transform, and I just want to mess with this a little bit. Something like that. Let's set this to
In the fog, when the mountains become more backlit, I think it looks better because they start to become more shadow.
yeah. And I could grab the exponential height fog. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. One second. Yeah. So that's the light fog channel, right?
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean, it doesn't look any different. All right, so at this point, I just want to render this out and bring it into, I'm not going to do any fancy settings, so let me just see what I have here. I just want to see what it looks like in the edit. I'm just going to name my camera something. I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. Let me just set this up. Okay, so just get rid of this for a second. So I'm not doing any high quality settings, nothing. At this point, I don't care. The only thing I'm doing is I'm rendering it at 2048 by 1556. That's the only thing that I'm doing that's a little different. I make a new folder for every single render I do. I don't write it in the same folder. I never override my old renders because sometimes it won't update or it won't render over the other frames, but you won't know it until it's done, so you'll waste a bunch of time. So just for organization, I rather render it on top of the old one. Sorry, on top of not on top of the old one. Put it in a new folder. So that's doing its thing. It's a lot of frames. Trent, do you want to show something in the meantime, like maybe the eye stuff while that renders?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll just show. I have a couple of things to show, but I just want to load
Yeah.
my side up, and then I'll share my screen. So 1 moment.
So yes, Alex just wrote this, which is I should definitely check that out, as Tran was saying earlier.
Let's see. Give me 1 second. What I'm about to show, they're not final lighting. I'm just working on some stuff. I'm going to pass it back to Miguel. I'm going to show this one first because it's heavier to load than the eye stuff. Share my screen. How do I take over the screen? Okay. Okay, so I'll show what I've been doing, and I'll get to what he suggested. So this is not final lighting. It's going to get final when I pass this back to Miguel. But basically what I've been doing this week are a couple things. So when Miguel, or when we updated to version 5, and then Miguel passed me this scene, the lighting completely broke and everything was super bad. So like,
Wait. You don't have anything on the screen.
oh, there we are. I thought I did. Oops, it stopped. Okay, there we are. Sorry. I pressed the wrong button. Okay, so yeah, so the lighting broke. It was messed up. I'm just trying to sort of put it back to where it was before, just so that I can tell what I'm doing, because otherwise it's really tricky to work. So what I did this week is I completely replaced these vines. We had some old ones, and they were just barely noticeable. So I came back and redid them, and you can see what they look like without them. These were actually made in SpeedTree. The other thing that I also did was I split up some of the texturing here. It's just in the material, so they're just for more material control.
Hold on, someone is asking a question. Did we have to remake the lighting process from zero? Yeah, we basically relit everything.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened, but it's frustrating. It's not to the fault of Unreal or anything. They did warn us, like, don't use it in production, right? So we were using it before, the final release just came out. So all this is like not really complaining about it, because you just expect that to happen. They have to change and update stuff. So those are just the reality of
Yeah.
working on something that's not complete.
And we also don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. On top of that, yeah. So what I did here is I just split it up some of the materials. So there's actually like this bloody, let me just get out of here, kind of material here. It maybe is a little bit too saturated. But I just have a tint that I can adjust, right? So you can see I can turn this up and down. Where it was kind of being lost, it just looked really black. The other thing that I tried out this week was working with some vertex color. Trying to think about what I should focus on. Because if I don't focus, I'm going to really half-ass what I'm saying. Do you think I should go into Alembic for Marvelous, or just focus on the vines?
I would do the Alembic stuff.
Okay, so I'll talk about this next week then. Yeah, let's do that. So this is what I've been working on here, and I'll go into more depth on some of the stuff I set up here later. So that's where we're at here, and I think these vines look much more gruesome and evil. As far as some of the eye stuff that we were talking about here, it's pretty simple, but simple is good, right? So originally, if you look at our eye, like this is literally the eye. It's super reflective, and it's actually really tricky to get like the highlight, right? If you look at anything, even a person, just Google face. And I'm just clicking random pictures on the internet. But there's always a highlight, right, on the eyes. And without it, it can look very, very dead. So what I tried to do to get around that, because no matter how we light it, it's not going to work. It's also not quite the same. One, material is stylized. Two, the workflow is different. So if we were working in V-Ray, for example, you could, or Maya, and rendering it, you could just light link a light onto the eye, and it would only contribute in the reflection, right? And we don't really have that kind of control here. So I literally painted a map that looks like this, right? You can see it looks very hand painted. So if you get close, you'll actually see the strokes. And the map just is this, like super, you know, not very exciting or anything like that. When the way it's plugged in, if I just show the master material, over here, it's just an emissive color. So just has emission on. I don't know why I can't scroll. All right. And that's it. So I always like to have this option here. I really don't need to do a lot. But I always like to have the option of having not anything on, right? So this is just a static switch parameter. So this is actually the map that I showed you with the little white dot. The multiply allows me to control the intensity because you don't always want it super bright. It could look very weird. And then the static switch parameter just says, hey, do you want to turn it off? And then it was automatically switched to this black map, right? So if I come over here to this one, under this option, just collapse these. I could turn that off, right? And it's just going to have this color, which you could color it, but that would just destroy everything. If I want to use the texture, I can just load this on, plug in whatever texture I want. And you can see I have a gray color because it was too bright, right? You can see how bright it can get. So I can lower this intensity. I don't want to save that. Let's just, I think I did save it by accident. That's fine. The other thing I did here, which again is pretty all super simple, go back to my textures, is I have different directions, right? So one will be, let's do it in the material. Let's go here. One eye will have a highlight here. Another eye will have a highlight over here. And that's just a material depending on the light direction. I could make more, but that's it. But I think it makes a big difference in the scenes, especially when it's dark. Okay. The other thing I did this week was simulating cloth. So even if you know Marvelous, some of these tips might be really helpful. If you don't, they're definitely going to help. So let's just start with, like, say something I would get. So this would be a cache that Miguel would give to me. This is all one Alembic file, everything here, right? And all I would need to do is just cache the body. I don't really need anything else than that. If I bring all this other stuff, it's just going to make it a pain in Marvelous. So I just want to have the bare minimum. I usually won't know the frame ranges, so I will select it in Maya and then go to the limit node in the attribute editor, and then I can see my start frame and end frame. And then I will come in here and set my framing here. So 661 to 750. Now, none of this is actually really hard, but there's a lot of glitching inside of Maya that causes a tremendous amount of problems. So you have to be really, really careful. So even if my range is 661, what I would notice and it's not happening here because it's a bug, right? So I can't really force this to break. You might see it breaking. But sometimes once it exports, right, and you can see this is 750, your first frame will pop to your last frame. So all of a sudden frame 661 will look like 750 and then it will start going over, or my last frame will pop back to frame 661, which is really nasty thing to do. So what I do, and this seems to work, is I'll pad it. So I'm gonna give it 10 more frames in the beginning, and you can see that it's still, this seems to work, and it makes no sense, but it seems to work. And I'm gonna add 10 frames at the end. That way, it seems to prevent the frames from popping from the beginning and the last frame. Now, the other thing is if I look at where this is oriented, the next thing I'm trying to figure out where it's in space. So this is spatially works perfect in our level, but I can't actually sim it like this in Marvelous. It's not going to work out, and you might see why in a second. So what I'm going to do is I just grab everything, put it in a group, and I try to move it back towards the origin, which is this little space here. And I don't want to lose my pivot because I do want to keep maintain these values, right? Just the way they are, like that. Okay, so let's see if I get closer. Okay, so she's still pretty far off. And then I'm going to sim this in the center-ish. Well, I'm going to do it kind of messed up because I think, yeah, I'm going to do it the first time wrong, intentionally. Okay, let's move her body. Let's find the arrow. Now, once I sim it, the idea is I have these values, and I can bring the claw sim and make sure it's sitting in actually the correct space that it should be in at the end. But okay, so let's just say I do something like this. She's in the center. I want to make sure she doesn't go into the floor. So I might raise it up a little bit, like that. Right, none of our clothing touches the floor. That's intentional because that would just create all kinds of problems for us. Okay, so now I have this. Next, what I tend to do is I'm going to bring this in the model, the T-pose one, just so I have an understanding of how this character is oriented. And this is where I'm going to do this wrong. And it shouldn't work, but it might because that's what live demos work. Okay, so this model I brought in is how the clothes is simulated inside of Marvelous. So if I look at this here, it's the same exact pose and position right here, okay? Now, the next thing I do after that is I will grab the first frame, right? So this will be frame 661, and I'm just gonna export as OBJ. Now all this will work because the model is exactly the same. I'm going to blend this position to this position. You need to get the clothing in this pose. If you try to simulate it like this into the limbic, it's just going to explode. It's not going to work. It's going to, the clothes are going to fall on the floor. So they have to be simmed into that first pose. So I'm just going to export this somewhere. Let me make a throwaway folder. And I like to name it like the shot or something like that. I don't remember the shot name, but I always put the frame number. That way I remember that information. Okay. So let's come back in here. And what I'll do is I'm going to import that OBJ that I just exported. Just link to it. So this pose here. And all you have to do when it says load type, you're going to put open object type, not avatar. You're going to just put morph target. So a morph target is a blend shape, right? And then you have a frame count. I'm reading it out loud. I don't think you can see it clear, but morph target is here and your frame count is here. You want this number to be pretty high. If you put this number by default, I think it's 20 or 30, The cloth is going to sim really fast. It's going to act like a rubber band that you pull and it's going to snap. And if the clothing snaps back like a elastic rubber band, it can actually ruin your simulation and then make your clothes like flipped, right? So I bring it as high as I can, and 99 is the maximum. We can see what happens if I lower it. Let's just try this. So everything is kind of wrong intentionally, and I'm going to say okay. Once I say that, it should run into the simulation, and you can see why this is not going to work. So just because I'm telling it to blend, it doesn't know the best way to actually get there, right? It's as for the simulation, it's just blending to the shape that it needs to blend to in order to get into that pose. So this is not a workable thing at all, right? If I work like this, I would have to come in here and try to repair the clothes and try to put it back on. But this is a pretty nightmare situation to be in. So this is what I've done to get around this. So let's come back in here. One, I know that I can't actually sim it right on top because it will blend shape a really weird way to get to where it needs to, and the clothes are going to fall off, right? Just like what you saw. So what I do, let's grab this group, is I need to give it distance. Okay, and I can rotate this, but I've worked around it a couple different ways. If I give it distance, it forces the forms, like the limbs, to remain, right? If you put it right on top, the arms will shrink and turn to a little arm, the leg will turn to a little leg, and the head will disappear. But when you give it distance here, the limbs will remain intact. Now, the other thing is simulating from this position to this position will also cause problems. It will be a similar situation. So I know that I should actually change this. I can work by flipping this, but I decided not to because I think, this is an option that I like. It's a little bit cleaner for me. So I want to rotate this 180. This way, this is going to blend to this really easy, and the clothing shouldn't disappear. I want to have distance again, but I don't want too much distance. If I give it this much distance, the clothing will move really quick. It will slap back like an elastic. Worst case scenario, the clothing will explode when you push it too far. So this is why I can't actually sim it from its original position. It's very difficult. But again, I need some level of distance. Now, this is just rotated 180. Now the problem here, let's just reload this file. So these are all strange little workaround things. Basically just trying to massage the software a little bit. Okay. So if I grab this here and I try to flip this, I can grab the clothing and I can rotate it like that, but I can't grab the character and the clothing and rotate it. So this is pretty annoying. The other thing that's pretty annoying is if I try to rotate it here, the pivot is just based wherever I click. So what I do instead is I will just rotate it in here. That way it's going to be in the center. Otherwise, it really will throw you off. So let's just say this is a la pose, like reverse A pose. And I'm just going to import the new model like this. It's not going to be morph target. It's going to replace it. So if I load it as open object type avatar, it's just going to replace that. And you can see it's backwards. Now, it should be fine as long as you don't sim it. If you sim it, it's going to be problematic. So I just have to manually flip this. The easiest way to do it, because there is no channel box, I can't just type 180 and it's going to do it. So it's pretty annoying. At least my pivot is in the center. And what I try to do, this is pretty annoying. So I grab this, I look up at this, I start my mouse up here, and then I bring it down here. That's how I know it's like 180 because I'm starting from up here and down here. Okay, so that's close to 180, and I just move it back into place. So they're like little weird things. You want to make sure the tight clothing. So the underwear, they do have underwear, is actually placed. So I basically go into these angles and move it until the tight clothing is not colliding with the skin. Once it's like this, I check and I just resim it. This will give it the clothing a moment to readjust on top of this new pose. Okay, you can snap shift. That's a tip from Net3Tbug. Okay. So once I have this, I actually save this file. So if you look at my projects, I have them in regular pose, 90 positive, reverse, and I have negative. That way it just kind of helps me. Now, once I have this, I should be able to morph target into this new one, but let me just re-export this because I was moving it around. So the position might be off. Pose 661. Now, while I'm at it, well, let's do this one first because I'm going to do this wrong on purpose again. On the next step, this one should be correct. So let's import pose 661. Set it as morph target. And you can see it's moving forward. You can see how the clothing is already crunching up, right? And this is flying out. So if we were trying to move really great distances, it would be problematic. There might be a better way to do this. I would be interested if someone has a better way that's actually made it work. And then what happens is I'm simming it now just to let the clothes relax. So this could take a bit. I usually just get up, get something to drink, and or do whatever, take a very short break.
Did you want to show anything else after this?
Yes, how to bring in the actual alembic.
Because if you want to let that sim, how long is that going to take to sim?
Like 10 seconds.
Okay, that's not bad.
Well, if you want to take over, but
No, just
okay, it might take a little bit longer. There's a couple things that's happening in this one. This is colliding to that. So I usually will just pull it back out, resim it, shake it out. This actually usually works better than this. I think I wasn't being very careful. And I usually want this to drop. Looks like it's just taking its time. Okay. All right, let's just pretend that was like good. This is good enough to start. Now there's a couple things here, like this is fallen off here, like this. Not against nudity, but that's not the design, right? So during simming, if she's running, it can just spin around the whole entire body. So what I'll do is I'll just tack it, right? So I want this part of the clothing here. Let me step back. Let me just delete this. Okay.
And there
So-
are moments where we do have nudity in this, and
It's just a flash.
just a
Yeah.
flash.
So this is a button that allows me to select my tacks. This is the tack, right? This one is tack for clothing only. This is tack on avatar. So I can select that, select the cloth, and then select where I want it to sit. So I want it to sit above here, right? And I don't want this to spin around. So I'm going to tack this. And I'm going to have to I might have to tack it twice when I bring in the alembic. And then I'm going to sim that. Okay, shake out the crinkle. Okay, so you can see it's relaxing. And I'm just going to not let it relax all the way. I usually will save my file at this point. I won't save. Like, well, I should, because if this explodes. Let's just put it in my demo. Okay. Now, I'm going to export the Alembic. And there's a couple options you want to have on. And I'll show you what happens if you don't have them on. So let's export selection to Alembic. I can set my time slider. I actually want it to be what it's supposed to be. So I'm going to remove the 10 frames before and after. And under options, I don't really need the UVs, but let's just say I don't put anything. I'm using Maya 2022, so I don't have the old Alembic version available. It's just Agawa. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but let me just set this to export. And let's just call this ala body. I usually try to type in the frames here. Just when I look at a file, I know what I'm looking at. It's kind of messy, but it works for me. Okay. And it should sim this correctly. Now, the other problem that I get with Maya a lot that makes me redo this step all the time is sometimes Maya will, when it exports Alembic, it will start to pop. And when it caches out, all of a sudden it will pop, meaning it'll pop from like a really random frame. It'll be here, this frame, and then the next frame will look like this, and then it'll pop back to the sequence, which drives me insane. Once I have that, I'm going to import my Alembic. And again, this is the wrong way. You can set your frame. This is 24 frames. My scale is all centimeters. Everything is centimeters. And you can see it came out over here, right? So it didn't actually have the data from this. It's reading it as if this is zeroed out. So if you actually want that, you have to have a couple things in your setting. So let's just cache this out again. And in general, even if I don't need the UVs, I always have this on. You need the world space, and that will record it in the space that you actually see in Maya, right? And I always have right face sets on. You don't need it for Marvelous, but you do need this for Unreal. I'm going to export this selection. And let's just override it. Well, no, maybe it's not good because it's loaded in another scene. Let's just call it B. Let's set the export. Let's jump back in here. This should be fine as long as the clothing comes back in or it's sitting in the right place. Okay, so you see now it's in the right place. And now all I have to do, just go over to animation, right? Once you're in animation, you actually have two sim modes. You have normal, default, animation stable. The animation stable looks like a double arrow, whereas the regular one looks normal. What I tend to do here is I will just sim it in animation mode for a moment because they're actually different. Sometimes the clothing will readjust and pop. If you don't sim it in the animation mode, that pop is going to record in your actual simulation. So I just press it, and sometimes it does pop and sometimes it doesn't. The next thing I do here in particular is if you notice the clothing is kind of floating. This is probably fine on a fully clothed character. It's not really very good on this type of clothing. So if I select my avatar, which is the model, there's a value called skin offset, right? It's at 3. So I usually lower it to like 0.5. And then I'm going to sim it, and it should be closer to the skin. So you see it popped, and now it's readjusting to be closer. Now the last thing I check before I actually record, and you don't actually have to see it recording. I can just turn this back to Miguel, and I'll just sim. Let's go back here. Is I want to check to make sure my tags didn't disappear, right? So I go into this option. I see that they're still tagged. On certain versions of Marvelous, they disappear. And on certain versions, they stay. So I don't remember what does what. I just check because I don't want to make a mess out of it. And then all you have to do at this point is just hit this record button, and it's going to simulate. So I'm going to start this, and I'm going to pass it back to Miguel, and then he can come back to me. Or
Okay.
should I just wrap up the materials?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's so important.
Yeah, that's pretty important. Okay, so this sim is not going to be good because because I didn't let it relax in the first place, and I'm just doing it while I'm talking. But basically, it will just run through, and you can see the animation happening, and the clothing is all over the place. She's also running, so when it's running, I usually am super careful to make sure that the clothing is very relaxed first and in the position it should be, and that nothing is overlapping, because it will fly around a lot while running, right? So this is that shot in the beginning. While it's simming, you can actually still kind of move around a little bit, so I can see what's going on, but it's really slow. I'm going to stop the sim. When it stops, or I might crash by pressing this. When it stops, it will stop on its own when it completes, right? I'm trying to force it to stop. Okay. Once it's done, and again, this is because of time, you just have to go export. And here's the two Alembic formats. So Agawa's newer one, that's the one that you want to use with Unreal.
It's only one it'll let you bring it.
Yes. So you don't want to use this one. Now you could export this one and you can change it in Maya. I can't bring whatever I export directly into Unreal anyway for multiple reasons. One, it's not in the correct position. Two, it doesn't have any shader assignments to it, right? So I usually will export this. Let's just call it bad cloth because I don't want to use that. But I just want to show you export settings. I usually weld my cloth together. Now, welding it, the reason why I weld it is the cloth is made of a bunch of different pieces. Welding it means it merges the vertices together. If I don't weld it, light kind of leaks through it sometimes, like through the cracks of the clothing, which is weird. So I just turn on weld, and I want to keep it thin at 24 frames. You want to make sure that you have UVs on. So I use the UVs straight out from Marva, so everything is actually UV'd in here. And then I just say okay. Okay. So let's just minimize that. I will bring in something different, and it won't actually line up with this so perfectly because again, the whole process takes time to actually simulate. You're gonna have to use your imagination. So I will bring in the Marvelous Sim. Right. So this is the one for the body that I cached out. Let's just hide this one. And let me bring in the clothing. Okay. So this is what I got. And you can see it looks a lot better, right? Because I did a more careful job. Now, normally what I would do here, and again, this is going to be off because it's a demo. I will grab it, throw it back into that group. Let me just hide these other ones that don't work. And now we just zero this out. And then it's supposed to be back into the position that will be correct in the level. Now, as far as the material assignments, and this one took me several tries, you can assign materials after the fact in Unreal, but it's super slow.
Super, 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 super slow.
Yes, it's like so much that you don't want it to do it. You want it to do it for you. There's a couple things to think about. So here I actually have 3 materials.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
What do you mean in particular when you're dealing with alembics? If you're assigning just a material to an object, it's super fast. But when you're dealing with alembics, it's insanely slow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have 3 materials in Unreal. They are named, the naming is super important. So if I go to my character and I look for my material that I want, it's Ala Clothing 1, Ala Clothing 2, 3. I need to name this exactly the same. If I mess up the naming by anything, it won't recognize it. Now, the next thing you have to do, you have to name it, but it has to be the shading group. So I'm going to go Ala Clothing 1, double check. Basically, I spend most of the time double checking all the time because there's always like user error. Okay, so I have a clothing 1, 2, and 3, and I will just I'll just leave that naming. I usually color code this, that way I know it's actually assigned. So you don't have to do it, but you know, I'm not sure if I don't see the color. Okay, so now I have this. And when you assign this, you can't assign it to the model. It won't recognize it. So if you look at the cache options here, when you export selection to Alembic, what you have to turn on is right face sets. So you have to assign it to the face. So what I do is I go to my UV editor. And the reason why they're separated has to do with opacity maps not working for virtual textures, right? If I don't have virtual textures, it doesn't support UDIMs. So I select my first one. Right, assign that here. Go my shell here, assign this one. And my last one, I'm going to assign this here. And then now I know that this is assigned. I have a feeling it should work, but I'm not really being careful because it's demo. But now that this is set like this, I can just cache this out. You have to have world space on. If you don't, you'll have the same problem that you saw in Marvelous. It will just not record where it's at. The original value of this is close to origin, right? I'm putting it in a group in order for it to be in the place that I need to be in. UV right will make sure that I have UVs. Right face sets recognizes the material. And again, this world space gives me correct position. So let's just call it clothing demo. All my naming is very poor. Double check the settings here. Basically, I check all the time. Because there's always, for me, I feel like I can make mistakes. So I check my work often. So let's come back here. I'm just going to drag and drop this in. And it should work. Now there's import settings that you have to take care of. So import settings, the import type has to be set to skeletal mesh. I know that there's different settings that people have talked about online that's worked. This is what works for us in 5, okay? Sampling type, let me just make sure. Let's turn this on. Base calculation type, sorry, is no compression. So skeletal mesh, base calculation type, no compression. You want to check skip empty frames. Miguel has gone over this, right? If in case. Materials, you want to find materials. If you don't tell it to find it, it won't. And the last thing I do is I rotate 90 degrees on X. So basically 4 settings. I'm going to type this into the chat. Okay, so there. Okay. It will make no sense to anyone who has not watched this video. But this way, you don't have to try to write it down. And if you can't see it, get there. Now, if I import this, I already know that it's worked. It's recognized my material. I don't know where it's sitting because it's sitting really far. Oh, there it is. Can I zoom in on that? Okay. I can't zoom in on that. One last thing to show. Miguel figured this out, but this is the type of stuff that makes it difficult. So we're new to Unreal, right? But we're not new to CG. So some concepts for us are like, okay, you can understand. But something like this is tricky. So I'm going to drop the skeletal mesh in. I can't zoom in on it because it just zooms in the origin. So I have to like look for it. Okay, so it's right here. Right here, but it's disappearing. Okay. Okay, so it's somewhere around here. But we can't see it. So what Miguel figured out, and I don't know how he figured it out, is you have to set these bounds. So you go into, open it up, double click on it, go into the asset details, and you just have to give in the positive type bounds, in the positive bounds extension, we usually put in the value like 10,000. Otherwise it vanishes. And that's the stuff that makes us crazy, is like, you don't know these things so much, right?
Oh yeah, that thing.
And I'm going to save this, and you see it's back in. So it will make you crazy, 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 crazy when you're just like, why, where's, first of all, you might not see anything. You would think it's broken, so you failed. Second, you'll see it and then it will disappear and you're like, whoa, what's happening? Or you'll see its shadows. But you have to do that. So you can see it recognized it correctly. And again, trying to do it, just assign it like the regular way, like this, through here, it takes very, very long. I don't know why, but it takes a very long time. So it's better just to export out of Maya correctly. And so that is the workflow to get Alembic cloth. It's probably very hacky, but this is how we're doing it. Or, yeah.
It's good. All right, so should I take over?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, not a lot has changed. The only thing I've changed a little bit here is I changed the exponential fog intensity. But let's take a look at what we have in the edit at the moment. So I'm going to start it again. So if you guys have been here from the beginning, you're probably sick of this. Now you're starting to know how I feel when I look at this thing every 5 seconds.
Ni mawindo yangu, ulichelewa tena.
Hebu nionyeshe. Ah. Jamani.
Here's a new shot. Probably too intense.
Nitakuwa nimeurusha kwa nguvu sana. Siuoni.
So,
Kweli.
okay, so a few things that I noticed right away. I did do a newer version since this that I think looks better. So I think the whites are too blown out. So I use this tool called Film Convert Pro. So I'll just come over here. You can see my whites are way too crunched. So I'll just bring this. Maybe something like that. I do like how it's starting to come together. You can see in the back here, the mountains and everything are much more visible. So in the last version in Unreal, I brought up the exponential fog. Do you like that better, Tran?
Yeah, I think that's better. Oh, nothing popped.
Yeah, the Alembic pops around here. She loses weight.
But that's not actually baked. It's just like a bug.
No, it's not a bug. It's just the Alembic runs out. There's no
Oh,
more,
I see. Yeah.
There's no more animation.
Yeah.
So I think that's better. So I'll export this out. Let's put this guy in the edit. So I'll just put it in a new folder. So I know these are all temp. I just name them temp. So yeah, I just wanted to have the same kind of feel as this stuff here. Where did you go? Like these, I really like the green, so I want to try to get the green back in here. just so you guys know, on some of these, to get the green to look that nice, we actually ended up putting a spotlight directly behind the actual leaves just to blast light, like to subsurface them or translucence light them. That was the only way we could get that look. So it's a total cheat. But this is kind of the look I want, the blues, the greens, and the reds. And we're getting there. But the greens are not visible enough, and the reds are not visible enough, partially because her clothing is missing.
Yeah. So normally at this stage here, Miguel will give me the alembic, and I will start working on it right away, so that because it really affects the shot when you're looking at it, like the color is not there.
Yeah, but definitely we got to get the greens back in there. I do like that she's in shadow here because this is the kind of like the turning point. From this point on, things are going to get much more horror-ish. So that's good. I like that it feels a little bit scary. That this was not the original plan for the forest to feel this kind of creepy. Not that it's crazy creepy, but just a little bit more creepy or more dangerous than where she was at outside. Because we want a very big change aesthetically from this out here, this kind of African aesthetic, to that evil cave hole that Tran was showing
Yeah.
earlier. So let's see how the renders are going. So let's just let it finish. It goes pretty quick if you don't work on a bunch of other stuff at the same time. So you can see now it's going much faster. So the background, the blues are feeling much nicer. I don't have enough of the greens in there yet, but we can fix that fairly easily. I do like that it feels more like a cave. The layout of the branches is really crappy. But we'll fix
Yeah, but
that.
I think this could work. I think the big thing is the out of focus part, the in focus part in the background. But that was gonna. I'm sure that's gonna be resolved too.
And that's something we do a lot. Like I'll take it up to like this point, and I'll be like, I don't have the patience for the foliage, and Tran will make it look way more beautiful. So Tran does the meticulous stuff, and I think I'm much more of a bigger picture thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Tran will make this look beautiful, all the little details and whatever. But I'm just like, okay, it's a cave now. The light is from the back. We
Well,
have this blue
yeah.
light. Cool.
Another thing is the storytelling too, right? So it's not that hard to get the shot to look good in the background. If you weren't trying to make sure that you can see Al, that you can see her in it, that they're
Allah meaning the girl in the background.
yeah, meaning her sister, that's in the distance, right?
Yeah.
So those things make it harder. Like you're trying to get it to look good at the same time. The story is super important.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act. But I like this much more. Last week if you were tuning in, I was super emo and down because those shots I did not like them, and I feel much more positive about it. I am that type that agonizes over it. So,
Yeah.
which is what I was doing, but that's how it is. That's the process.
Yeah, we think everything we do sucks until it's done. Okay, so I'm going to start importing some of it. I should probably just let it finish. Because I really just need it to, like, well, around here is probably fine.
But yeah, I think we hit our time too.
Okay, well, let me import. So we'll bring that in. You can see it's going really slow because of the rendering in the background. It's not updating. So the blues feel much nicer now. Let's take a look at it full screen. You see the nice highlights on the eyes, even though she's in shadow. Not done, but it's looking much better than it was before. Let me take a look here. It feels like I'm missing a few things. It's because it's still rendering.
A couple questions while you're doing that. So nanite paid off? Yes. Okay. Some hellos. Hello, Piano 3D. Thank you. Someone said loving the descriptions, working from digital media not computer animation like this. So, and then someone else commented, "Have a nice stream. It's super cool what you're making. Thank you very much."
That's cool.
It's definitely risky, at least for me, because this is very new for us. I think it's for us ballsy. We have a set amount of time, a very small, super small team with very talented artists jumping in, helping us here and there with some tasks. But Miguel and I are mostly handling the man hours.
All right, so let's take a look at that.
Jamani.
So some of the sounds are not syncing. So let me just do that real quick. That's when she pushes this stuff in, and let me just see what this one is. Okay, so these guys here. So I'm just going to shift them to right around there.
Nitakuwa nimewarusha.
And then she doesn't start talking until right around there. Shift that over here. Fine tune it later. Usually what I'll do is I'll just cut it exactly where I want. Moves it to the slider, it snaps to that, and then I could expand it back. So that tends to work the best.
Nitakuwa nimewarusha kwa nguvu sana.
And there we go.
Nitakuwa nimewarusha kwa nguvu.
Let's grab our subtitles. Shift them over. So this is all in Swahili. So we're using the subtitle captions in Premiere, which is, I believe this is new. It's really awesome. Much easier than the old way. So let's just take a look.
Nitakuwa nimewarusha kwa nguvu sana. Siuoni.
And I can't find it. It's right there. Shift this over. Watch that again from here. Make sure there's continuity.
Jamani.
So I probably think we need more light if we want it to work with this. Although I have a suspicion this one's going to be completely relit. But I still feel there's much more light here. Probably come in here and add a little bit more top light.
Yeah, just for continuity.
Yeah, because I do like these a lot. So just making, I do like this one too, but bring this light in. And it might not even be adding more lights. It might just be bringing up the lights that are already there. Let me just do this real quick just to not finish it like half-ass. So like over here, I'm just going to find my spotlights. So let's just find one. There we go.
It's looking much better though. Like I could see like with when I look at it with tweaking, it's gonna look good.
Yeah. So remember, there's a difference between making it dark and making it muddy. Darkness is fine, but you want theatrical dark. You don't want muddy dark. So probably have to soften the shadows on this guy. Because I don't want those branches to be so defined.
Yeah, they're super sharp.
Same thing here. I'm just bringing up my source radius.
That cool light looks good on the skin.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And that's it. So I would render this back out and put it in the shot. I won't do that now because it takes a while, but we'll probably, like I said, I'll pass this to Tran and show Art Direct these branches a little bit more carefully than I would ever do because I'm too lazy. And but we have the lighting and we have the shot, the movement. It's telling its story, right? We're traveling with her. She's looking back at her sister to make sure her sister doesn't see that her spear is actually broken because she sucks at what she does. She pushes the spear in. So one of the things that I'm probably going to do here is have the spear visible here, just a tip. So when she does that movement, you'll see it fall over so it reads clearly.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we turn back like this. We see the sister, and then we would immediately cut to this shot here, which we have to completely redo, of course, which is her saying sure because she doesn't buy it. So
to me, this exterior stuff is the most difficult to light in Art Direct for the environments.
love to see you using Premiere Pro. I love Premiere Pro. You know, it's funny. Like some people are like, "Oh, the Premiere sucks," and it's like, I mean, dude, it's like literally you're just moving shit left and right. Like, what sucks about that? Like, there's not a lot to it. So, what would make it better? That it moves left and right better? I don't know. To me, this is pretty cool. There is things that are a little bit annoying, but I'm sure the other programs have just as much issues. But I like it a lot. So yeah, the big thing now is continuity. I like this one. It's very creepy. But I like the vibrancy of this one. So I just want to try to get this one to be a little bit more vibrant. We did get it to be a little bit more vibrant, but maybe a little bit more. Maybe bringing in that rim light. Let me just see where it is. Then I'll
We
end
also,
this.
if you look at where's the original renders, they were like overly intensely green. Remember, we set up a different shader for that, so that they are over the top. And that's pushing the saturation because once Miguel puts the film color on top of it, it desaturates everything.
Yeah. There's a lot of little lights doing stuff in the background. Might just move this. You know, when she comes in like that, I'm a little bit worried about how dark it gets.
Like the shadows, you mean?
Yeah. Just in that spot. Like, I like it here.
Yeah, but it goes completely black.
So we'll have to figure that out. Might have to put a more of a wrap light here. But yeah. We'll continue next week. Probably what happened. Oh, look, something happened there. So there was already a light there that I probably had turned off by accident. So yeah, it's not that dark. Okay, so that we're good. Like that, I'm fine with.
Yes, it's not pitch black.
Yeah. You could see the huge difference the little light hat that
Yeah.
Tran was talking about gives it so much life. So, but anyway, that's it, guys. Hope you guys. Does anybody have any last questions before we go, or is everybody fine? No questions. All right. So let me save this before it crashes. And all right, we'll see you guys.
Next Friday, starting at 1.
Yes. So let me see which one am I pressing. This one. All right. See you guys.
Bye.